Welcome to the Job Safety Plan coaching module. Let's start by defining what a Job Safety Plan or JSP is. A JSP is a written plan created by the crew together before starting work or when the scope of work changes. It is a collaborative effort in which each crew member can share their concerns, ideas, and experience so everyone may benefit and stay safe. It outlines basic job information and breaks it down into a step-by-step list of instructions to successfully complete the job. For each task, we define what the potential hazards and risks are, followed by our mitigation procedures. It includes any permit requirements. Hot work, confined space, and site safety plan are a few examples of some potential permit requirements. It includes emergency action information, such as what to do, who to call, and where to go in the event of an emergency. It defines what tools and equipment we will be using, for example, hand tools and a forklift. It outlines specific PPE requirements of the job and tasks. It includes a fall protection plan, which outlines equipment and behaviors we will use to prevent a fall. But most importantly, it gets everyone home safe. Having this initial meeting with the crew and discussing the tasks, hazards, and mitigation is invaluable information. Never assume that your crew knows this information. Everyone, including you, has unique experience and knowledge that is valuable.
Before we start work, it's important that we ask ourselves three important questions. What am I about to do? How could I or someone else get hurt? And what can I do to prevent myself or someone else from getting hurt? In order to account for ways we can get hurt, we can use the hazard wheel. The hazard wheel allows us to account for any releases of energy that may harm us. In order to plan for our mitigations, we should use the hierarchy of controls, starting with the most effective, elimination, working our way down to PPE. Remember, PPE should always be the last line of defense between you and the hazard.
Here is an example of a JSP we will be filling out today. Alright, let's get started. You can use your work order to fill out much of the basic job information on your JSP. Start by filling out the date and time, followed by the project name. For client or customer name, you'll use the customer located on your work order. In this case, it is Dunder Mifflin. For the job number, you can use the number located in parentheses next to the job site address on your work order. For job location, enter in the job site address. For customer contact, we'll use the contact located on the work order. Then we'll fill in our supervisor, followed by the weather conditions. Today will be sunny, 50 degrees with light wind, and we'll be working indoors. Our job description will be to erect a 7x7x20 scaffold inside the break room. There will be no engineering required for this job.
Next, we will look at the required permit section. There are no permits required for this job, so we will leave this section blank. Below is the emergency action information section. It is important that this information is not just written down, but communicated to the crew. We start with the host plant in this case. It is the Dunder Mifflin Denver office. The nearest phone location is important in the event of an emergency. It can be a cell phone, but in some cases, it may be a landline or a plant control room. In this case, it is in the operations office. The emergency contact should be the customer contact you used in the previous section, with the phone number on the work order, or if the customer has an on-site emergency line, list that. If working for an industrial client, always ask if they have an emergency line that should be used. The muster area is where you will all gather in the event of emergency. Some industrial plants will have designated areas. Otherwise, make it an area that is easy for the crew to find. Today, it will be the job trailer. In the event that your muster area is not available in an emergency, you will need an alternate muster area. Today will be the east front parking lot. Ensuring the crew knows the location of the nearest eye wash station is important. You don't want to be looking for it when you already have chemicals in your eyes. Today it will be in the warehouse. Knowing the location of the nearest wind indicator is important because of scaffold stability or chemical releases can be affected by the wind. Many industrial facilities will have windsocks. If not, use some dirt or grass. Knowing where to find the nearest fire extinguisher in the event of a fire can be the difference between life and death. Many facilities will have fire extinguishing equipment mounted. If not, we will need to have our own, which can be listed as in the truck. Last, we have the location of the nearest first aid kit. Sometimes it will be in the office trailer, but today it will be inside the truck.
Since we often work at height, the fall protection planning section is extremely important. In today's project, we will mark off that we will use a guardrail system, which means we will be using handrails as much as possible. Followed by marking off 100% tie-off. Remember, we have a policy when working on any incompleted scaffold, unless we have a written exemption from our construction manager and safety manager, we will be tied off 100% of the time we are on scaffold. In the other section, we will list any additional protection measures we will use to prevent a fall. Today, we will be using the highest anchor possible. This is important because using the highest anchor will limit our free fall distance in the event of a fall. Additionally, we will have a policy that we will always be standing on a minimum of 2 planks whenever standing on a scaffold. This section will be signed off by a site senior supervisor. Moving on to our personal protective equipment section, we will mark the applicable PPE required for this job. Today, we will be using a hard hat, approved impact gloves, clear eye protection when working indoors, a fall arrest system, and safety-toed boots.
Alright guys, our scope of work for today is to erect a 7x7x20 scaffold inside the break room. We're going to start by unloading material from the truck using a forklift. To stage the material outside the bay door next to the break room on the south side. What's a way we can get hurt doing this?
Well, we could be struck by the forklift.
That is true. What can we do to prevent that?
Well, we can have a designated spotter for vehicle traffic and stay out of the travel path of the forklift.
I like that. Next, we will move tables and chairs away from the west wall to make room to stage material inside the break room. What are some potential hazards and mitigations?
There are pinch points when moving material.
So we should keep our hands and body out of the line of fire when moving material.
We need to be careful not to damage the customer's property. Let's take pictures of the work area to document pre-existing property damage. Be gentle while neatly stacking tables and chairs.
After we move the tables, we will need to transport material into the break room by the west wall out of the walkway.
Some potential hazards would be striking sensitive equipment.
We can prevent that by flagging sensitive equipment with red tape and having a spotter around the sensitive equipment.
We could also get hurt by straining our muscles.
We can prevent that by team lifting when lifting more than 50 pounds, and by using your legs, not your back.
Also, don't forget we can be struck by scaffold material.
We will stay safe by staying out of the swing radius of scaffold material.
Excellent. Next, we will set jacks with verticals and horizontals, our first wrap using our hand tools.
That means we could be potentially struck by hand tools. We should keep our hands and body out of the line of fire and ensure others are out of our swing radius.
Good work, guys. After that, we will level and square the scaffold and install our ladder. There are no new hazards associated with those tasks, so we can refer to our mitigations listed on the JSP earlier. Then we will install our next rack. At this point, we will be working at heights, so we need to account for those potential hazards.
We can stay safe by hand passing material, not throwing it. Being sure to use verbal and twist and pull communication. After we pass the material back, we will take a step back to stay out of the line of fire and have overhead protection when possible.
Another hazard is falling from the ladder. We can prevent that by maintaining 3 points of contact on the ladder.
Alright, After, we will install the third rack, our toe boards, and finally installing the gate.
A potential hazard is damage to unguarded lights.
We can keep a spotter on the ground who will let us know if we're getting too close to the lights.
Alright guys, next we will return material to the rack near the exterior bay door. Return the tables and the chairs to their original spots, clean up trash in the work area, load the rack back onto the truck.
Since we haven't been to the truck in a while, there could be some unexpected changes to the work area that are unsafe. We could fall off the truck while loading material.
We will re-inspect the work area to ensure no new hazard exists and maintain a 3 points of contact when getting on and off the truck.
Alright, then we'll strap down the truck and we'll call it a day.
Here are some basic do's and don'ts when filling out your JSP. Avoid vague and generic descriptions. Instead, write how you will be safe. Avoid words like mobilize. Instead, write unload material from truck to staging area. Avoid be alert. Instead, write look before turning corner. Avoid good communication. Instead, write communicate verbally / twist method. Avoid good lifting technique. Instead, write team lifting when greater than 50 pounds or lift with legs. Avoid watch footing. Instead, write watch footing when on uneven ground. Avoid wear gloves. Instead, write wear impact resistant gloves.
Key areas to remember. A JSP is a single task broken into simple steps. It is a legal document, so treat it like one. It must be completed before starting every job. It must be updated and reviewed if conditions change. It must be updated and reviewed if you are away from the job site for more than 30 minutes. This includes leaving for lunch. And the crew and the foreman must sign the JSP before beginning work.